He stands at the edge of the pit watching the cold roll across the open ground. Above the surface, the wind takes warmth fast. Too fast. A heater flickers today and people panic. A woodpile drops low and we call it trouble. But out on the old plains, winter didn't warn anyone. It just arrived. No roar, no drama, only a thin breath of air scraping the ground clean. A fire lasted a moment up here, then it shrank, then it died, but just a few feet below the earth, held steady. The soil kept a memory of warmth the sky could not steal. That is why they went downward when the wood was gone, not to hide, but to reach the only place where heat stayed loyal in a world of ice. He stands at the lip of the pit boots on frozen soil, watching the surface breathe cold. Up here, warmth doesn't last. Not for long. The wind skims low across the ground, pulling heat the way a hand wipes dust from a table. Quick, clean, final. That is the first problem on the surface. Nothing holds the warmth in place. No earth wall, no barrier. A fire burns bright for a moment, then the cold tears through it, and the heat is gone before a man can settle his breath. But down below, just 3 or 4 feet, the story changes. The soil keeps a steady memory of warmth, 10 degrees, sometimes 20. Not because the earth is hot, but because it does not swing wildly like the air above. He kneels closer to the edge, feeling a faint breath of warm air rising from the dark. It is small, almost shy, but it holds. It stays. That was their discovery. You don't fight the surface cold. You go below it. The earth does what 6 pieces of firewood cannot. It stays loyal through the night. So they shape the ground with care. A low slope, a narrow opening, just wide enough to enter, but small enough to stop the warmth from rushing out like a spooked animal. Simple work, precise work. The kind of work men do when wood is gone and the wind shows no mercy. And once the pit was shaped, the payoff was immediate. Heat stopped fleeing. It lingered in the soil, held still by weight and depth. The surface stayed bitter, but below the warmth slowed down, settled, and stayed where they needed it. They were not chasing fire, they were chasing depth. And that thinking is found again in the pit dwellings of ancient Jomon people far across the ocean. Cold lands. Same logic. Downward is the way to live. He stands again at the edge of the pit, watching his breath drift sideways in the cold. Up here, the air moves too much. Down there, it barely moves at all. And that silence brings its own problem. A body can live without wood for a night, but not without air. Most people think more airflow means more comfort. But in winter country, a big entrance is just an open door for heat to run away. Like a barn with both doors swung wide, the warmth doesn't stand a chance. So they learned a quieter trick. A smaller opening, lower than the floor itself. A place where the cold air sinks and stays put, trapped like a heavy stone at the bottom. A cold trap, simple but sharp in its logic. He leans closer, seeing the faint shimmer of warm air rising past that narrow gap. It moves slow, almost unwilling to leave, and above that, carved into the roofline, a thin vent brings in just enough fresh air to breathe without letting the heat spill out. Fresh in. Warmth stays. That balance is the heart of the system. They weren't chasing wind, they were shaping it. Keeping the cold low, letting the clean air drift in from above at a pace the warmth could survive. Fire needs oxygen to burn, but a man needs oxygen that doesn't steal the heat from his ribs. That difference is what kept families alive under storms that erased the world outside. And this same thinking traveled across cold lands. The half-sunk winter houses of old northern Europe used the very same idea. A low entrance, a high vent, a calm pocket of air between them. Different people, same winter, same solution hidden in the ground beneath their feet. He stands at the rim of the pit again, watching frost cling to the surface dirt, while a softer warmth drifts up from below. Up here, the wind steals everything. Down there, the earth holds on. That difference begins with the walls. On the surface, a fire loses heat faster than a man can wrap his coat tighter. The wind pulls it sideways. The air thins it out. Nothing slows the loss. But underground, the rules change. Packed earth absorbs heat slowly, almost grudgingly, and releases it even slower. Heavy things behave that way. They don't jump. They don't rush. They keep what they're given. He kneels near the edge and runs a hand along the top of the wall. The surface feels cold, but not empty. There's a weight to it. A kind of quiet patience. The kind you only find in things shaped by time pressure and hands that knew exactly what they needed. That was the discovery. If you pack the earth tight, line it with clay, and press every inch until it stops shifting, you turn the wall into a natural heat battery. It charges slowly with every breath and every body lying below. And once charged, it refuses to let go. Not fast, not wildly, just steady heat leaking back through the night like a slow promise kept. The payoff was simple. The wind above could howl, scrape, and strip the world bare, but down here, the heat didn't flinch. It stayed where they placed it. They weren't relying on flame, they were relying on mass. And mass has memory, Earth more than anything else. Archaeologists see the proof today in winter pit houses from old Pawnee sites. The walls shine with a soft polish. Hands pack them, nights warm them, depth preserved them. He stands at the edge of the pit again, listening to the world above and the world below. Up here, the wind never shuts up. Down there, the earth barely whispers. That silence matters. On the surface, every gust makes the heart jump a little. Every rattle of canvas pulls the breath faster, and faster breathing means faster heat loss. It's a quiet truth most folks forget. Your own heartbeat can drain you quicker than the cold if you let it run wild. But underground, the noise disappears. No flapping hide, no whining wind. Just a steady, heavy stillness that slows the body down. He looks down into the pit and sees it in the way the air moves, slow settled, unbothered. The kind of air that doesn't push you, doesn't chase you, doesn't steal anything from you. They built the shelters that way on purpose. A low entrance so the wind can't follow. A roof pressed tight so nothing hums or shakes. A chamber deep enough that even a storm above sounds like a far-off memory. And in that calm, the body settles. The heartbeat evens out. The breath finds a rhythm that doesn't leak heat with every exhale. 5 to 10% of a person's warmth stays put simply because they aren't scared, stressed, or listening to the world coming apart outside. That was the real payoff. Silence became insulation. Stillness became a survival tool. He's seen the same thing in northern Canada in old, quiet, sheltered designs built by people who knew winter better than most of us ever will. Different lands, same knowledge. Sometimes the thing that saves you isn't fire or wood. It's the cold finally running out of things to say. He stands at the edge of the pit, watching the cold settle onto the surface dirt like a damp blanket. Up here, moisture bites deeper than the wind. Down there, dryness is what keeps a body alive. Most folks forget this simple rule. Wet skin loses heat 3 times faster than dry skin. It doesn't matter how warm the air feels for a moment, the moisture always wins the long game. But underground, they understood the danger well. A pit can turn damp overnight. Condensation creeps in. Cold air sinks and carries moisture with it. And once the walls get wet, everything in that chamber starts bleeding heat. So they built their defense by hand. Clay first. Pressed along every wall, every seam, every weak point, the earth might open. Clay doesn't just seal. It stops vapor the way a stone stops a blade. He looks down and sees the dull, smooth shine where the clay was laid thick, forming a tight skin against the cold. Then came the floor. Dry grass, willow mats, anything that kept the body from touching damp soil. A thin layer, but a sharp one. The difference between losing heat all night or holding it long enough to see morning. And the payoff was real. No more evaporative heat loss. The chamber stayed dry, and dry meant warm. Not hot, not cozy. Just warm enough to keep a family breathing steady until the sky changed again. He's seen the same trick in old Mandan winter pits' thick clay skirts around the lower walls, still clinging after 100 winters. Different tribes, same respect for the land's logic. In winter country, staying dry is staying alive. He stands at the edge of the pit, feeling the cold gather around his boots. Up here, the air sinks fast. Down there, it moves slow, almost careful. Cold always settles at the lowest point. That's winter's oldest habit. And if a man sleeps right at the bottom of the pit, the cold pools around him like water in a bowl. He loses heat all night without even knowing why. But they learned better. He looks down and sees the raised sleeping tier, not high, not low, just a small lift above the pit floor, 20, maybe 30 centimeters. A quiet adjustment that changed everything. That was the discovery. If you sleep just above the cold pool, you stay in the pocket of warmer, slower air. Not hot, but steady. The kind of warmth a body can hold on to when the world outside is scraping itself clean with ice. They built it with simple steps. Pack the soil tight. Lift the bed platform just enough to clear the cold sink. Line it with grass or willow mat so the body never touches the raw ground. Nothing fancy, nothing loud, just a small, deliberate rise like taking one step up out of danger. And the payoff was real. The warmth stayed close. The cold stayed low. And a family could breathe through the night without losing their strength to the air below them. Sometimes survival isn't a trick. It's positioning. Putting the body in the one place the cold can't reach first. Archaeologists still see those raised platforms in Plains woodland pit houses today. A small lift. A quiet solution. But in winter, country quiet solutions often save the most lives. He stands at the edge of the pit, watching the storm above turn the world white. Up here, snow breaks things. Down there, it protects them. Most people only see the weight. Snow crushes roofs. Snow buries doors. Snow ends the night early if the structure isn't ready. But they learned something different. When snow falls evenly across an earth roof, it presses the soil tight. That pressure seals gaps, thickens the barrier, and traps the warmth inside like a hand cupping a small flame. The roof doesn't weaken, it strengthens. He looks down into the pit and feels the faint rise of warm air brushing past his knees. Above, the wind claws at the land. Below, the heat stays steady under a roof held firm by winter's own weight. They shape the roof with intention, a gentle curve, packed soil, no sharp angles that let snow pile wrong or slide too fast. Let the storm lay its blanket evenly and the shelter warms 5 to 15 degrees on a night when nothing else warms at all. That was the payoff. Snow stopped being an enemy. It became insulation, a natural, heavy, reliable shield. And the idea isn't new. He's seen the same logic in igloos far to the north where cold things become warm things once you understand how they're built. Different lands, same winter, same quiet truth. He stands at the edge of the pit one last time, feeling the cold press against his legs, while a thin breath of warmth rises from below. Up here, the wind still takes everything. Down there, the earth still gives a little back. They never chased fire. They never begged the flames to last. They understood something most people today never stop to consider. Heat fades fast in the open, but the ground remembers. Survival wasn't about strength. It wasn't about endurance. It was about direction, downward, into the place where the cold slows down and the soil carries the last warmth of autumn like an old memory that refuses to leave. He watches the quiet below and realizes the simple truth. Firewood runs out. Storms get worse. But the earth stays steady. And sometimes that steadiness is all a person needs to make it through the night. He stands at the edge of the pit watching the last glow fade on the surface while a thin breath of warmth rises from below. Up here, the cold walks in fast. Down there, the earth stays steady, silent, patient, warm enough to hold life when fire cannot. That is why they went down instead of up. Why they trusted soil more than smoke. Why the ground replaced firewood on nights that should have taken them. He takes one last look into the quiet below, the only warmth still standing. Stay by the fire.